Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I sure can.
Okay. Do you hear the thumping and the pounding in the background of me?
Is there
Because
thumping and pounding?
the so the neighbor of my office, like literally the wall I share right
Yes.
here, is with the Performing Arts Center, and there
Yes.
is a large group of probably about 50 men in top hats right now, perf practicing something, and I mean they are
Don't
just
take a picture.
whooping and hollering and going for it. And like I was like, oh goodness, I hope the noise canceling powers of headphones work.
Well,
That's
my
hilarious.
7 and 9-year-old shouldn't be as loud as 50 guys in top hats, but they can sometimes achieve that. They're supposed to be doing bedtime with their dad right now, so we'll see if that door opens.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's always a who's who of what's gonna happen.
that's life and that's fun. I'm here for it. Have
Yes.
the men in top hats come in, have the kids come in. It's a party.
Well, hi Alex, welcome. Nice to meet you. I'm
Nice to
Kai.
meet you. I'm
Hi,
so
I'm Lee Ellen.
excited.
Thanks for joining us.
Sorry, could you
Um,
say your name again?
Lee Ellen.
Lee Ellen. That was my
Yes.
guess. That
It's
was
a
my
lot
guess.
of letters. I
But then I
know.
was like, is that just the southernness in me where I was like, that's Lee Ellen. I know that.
You know what's so funny? For years, my husband and I, we actually used to live in Seattle and then we lived in Colorado. But we would always joke, I'm like, man, I'm missing out. I guess I should have been born like in the South. I've got this like Southern name,
A
Layellen.
double first name. We know those.
So now it's funny because before people would not know how to say my name or what my name is, and here people like don't even think twice. They're like, oh yeah, it's Layellen. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Guild. This is Fabled's Fantasy Book Club. We're so excited because we do have Alix Harrow here with us tonight. I am Lee Ellen, the fantasy book buyer. This is Kai, our events manager. So we're really excited. We do want to warn you or just put it out there ahead of time that we expect that you have read this book. So this is a spoiler. Spoilers will abound in this discussion. So if you have not finished, just make your way quietly out and come back and watch the recording. The recording will be emailed to you. But we will dig in to all the scoop here. We've got lots of questions. If you want to chime in, there is a comment box, and there is what else is there, Kai? There's like
There's also a little like Q&A
Q&A.
section, but honestly, the best thing is just go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. I know Liel and I have prepped a lot, but if you have some that we didn't think of, which I'm sure you
Poor
do,
Alex.
put
Alex,
it
this is going to
there
be a
and we'll
4 hour
try and
chat.
get through it.
I just feel like you're
We
like,
don't have anything
look,
else going on.
you can submit your questions, but like ours are better. We did our
No,
homework. Like, I
no,
just,
no.
We have
I
read all
understand.
of your books and we are total fangirls. So we might
Our
hop all the
document
time.
is long. There's actually a section of our document where we were both editing it like, 30 minutes ago. And it was like, maybe we won't get to these. And I was like,
See, this is how I am when I get to be in conversation with an author that I like. I'm like, they want us to leave like 15 minutes just for the audience, but like, I feel like I did the
Right.
work.
but
That's fine.
we are gonna leave space for you guys. So as you have the questions, drop them in the chat. We will get to them. We
Yes,
swear.
we promise we will look at them. We won't just steal all the time to ourselves. Well, Kai, do you want to kick us off with a welcome intro?
Absolutely. I will go ahead and officially welcome Alex with her official bio and a little book summary. So Alix Harrow is the New York Times best-selling and Hugo Award-winning author of The 10,000 Doors of January, The Once and Future Witches, Starling House, and various short fiction. A former Kentuckian, Harrow now lives in Virginia with her husband and her two semi-feral kids, who may pop through the door today. Who knows? Her latest novel is The Everlasting, which we are talking about tonight. This is a novel that follows the epic and mysterious story of Sir Una Everlasting, a lady knight and living legend in the realm of Dominion, and Owen Mallory, a scholar and failed soldier from a different time, as their lives and histories are entangled in a vicious loop that they try desperately over and over again to rewrite. Heartbreaking, hopeful, and shocking, the story tugs on all of your heartstrings as it tackles themes of resilience, love, war, and myth making. And we're so excited to talk about it tonight. Leellen technically has our first question, so go ahead.
Get away. Well, I'm going to start with in the beginning. Um, tell me, welcome to my desk. Okay, so I love your books and I am a crazy fangirl. So I think you are very creative and just have this wonderful magical quality about you. And I feel like that must have started from somewhere. So I would love to know, like, what was it like to be Alex as a kid and what books that, like, as a child kind of informed that imagination that you have?
Oh, that's a good question. I love talking about like formative reads. First of all, thank you for having me. This is really great. I don't do a ton of book clubs,
I know.
just because
That's why we are like so
We're
excited
aware.
you said yes.
just because I feel like I have sort of like on season author stuff. That's like you're touring, you have to do the thing, you're going to be in person. I'm going to wear like regular pants every day. But that's like 2 weeks of the year. So this is like off season, Alex. Like
This is
this is,
pajama Alex.
yeah, this is sweatpants, Alex. Like I'm not,
Love
I'm
it.
not in like fighting form. So I can say anything. So in terms of like kind of how I got into where I am with genre and with writing and stuff, I think probably every fantasy writer has a similar backstory, right? Like it's just that you hit those books. If you were like kind of a weirdo enough, lonely enough kid, you hit those books at this like particular time in your life and they
Mhm.
just felt like they got you through anything. I do have the extra advantage, I think, of being like a second generation nerd. Like my
Mhm.
mom already had those books. They were on the shelf. And I think a lot of people, particularly with sci-fi and fantasy, have to, if you are, let's say, a woman or queer or marginalized, you have to like get through this crust around the genre of like books that are kind of inimical to you in pretty foundational ways. Even if there's things you love about them, you're like, oh well, you know, he obviously hates women, but other than that, it's a really interesting idea. Or like this is
There's
a
so many good
fundamentalist.
options now,
There's
though.
so many, right? But like that crust had been already broken through for me by my mom. So like I started with like Le Guin and Butler as like the foundational like Anne McCaffrey, um,
Good
Patricia
mom.
McKillip. Like she was like, no, don't worry. So I kind of grew up with a totally different understanding of what the genre was and what its history was. And it was interesting almost as an adult to kind of go back and be like, I'm sorry, I don't, Piers Anthony, I've never, is
Not
he
everyone
anyone?
reads like
I
that.
don't think. Like, so it was a huge advantage in terms of like seeing the possibilities of what it could do and feeling at home there. I
Mm,
think it doesn't really get better than that.
love it.
So fun. Your previous books have landed more in the magical realism realm of shelves, and this book is described as genre defying, but it's on the fantasy shelves. Can you share a little bit about your writing journey and finding kind of where your books do land on the shelves and where do you want them to be on the shelves?
Yeah. I try not to worry about where they are on the shelves. I think early on, my agent said something like, it's her job to read a manuscript and know where it's going to be in the bookstore. I don't think that's my job. I think I get to outsource that. I think just because of my reading background, I often know pretty specifically like what genre or subgenre I'm trying to write in and speak to. How that aligns with the 2020s publishing world is kind of none of my business. Like, like I
So
know,
fair.
with Sterling House, like I was writing to a tradition of the Southern Gothic, which is often very invested in like the unreal and the magical and the suspenseful and all this stuff and tropes of horror, which I think kind of move through. The Gothic has always kind of moved through in and out of genre. And I felt like I knew what books it would be near in the library, but that doesn't, like Southern Gothic doesn't mean anything to like the Amazon sorting system. Like that's like something that only readers kind of communicate to each other through
Like,
vibes.
not everyone understands what the Dewey Decimal System is anymore.
Yeah, no, no. So
That's not a
like
thing anymore.
what I'm writing, how I'm informed for each book or what I'm interested in, I'm often like, I think pretty obviously in conversation with different bodies of things that often that meant something to me when I was younger. 10,000 Doors is pretty obviously like the 19th century children's fantasy, the emergent fantasy genre that was often portal fantasies, your Alice in Wonderlands, your Peter Pans, your Narnias, that kind of a thing. Um, Sterling House of Southern Gothics, witches is like a lot of witch-based fairy tales and kind of the early feminist interpretations of witchcraft. Anyway, Everlasting kind of had to be my first, oh, we're doing a secondary world thing, because I was
Mm.
trying to talk to kind of the various interpretations and manipulations of Arthurian legend without doing Arthurian, right? Like, because
Yeah.
that to me is like, I don't have enough degrees to do that justice. I can't read multiple other medieval forms of languages, so I don't need to be getting into those waters. Other people have done that. But I am interested in kind of the many echoes that it's had in our culture as it's retold and reworked
Mm.
many, many times. And so if I wanted to just deal with those echoes, I had to put it into kind of a secondary space that could be contained within the scope of one book.
Yeah, so let's dive into that because I I love retellings. I grew up, well, I mean, I
Yeah.
say that loosely, but I grew up loving as a child Mists of Avalon.
Mhm.
I love Robin McKinley books.
Oh my
So,
gosh, yes.
that's like when I see a book that is in that vein, I cling to it. So this one, I was like, this is such a creative feminist retelling, but it's its own entity. So like, what was the start of this novel? Was the start of it more like the history? Was the start of it more trying to put this feminist bent on King Arthur?
I don't think I'm ever like, I'm going to do a feminist retelling. I think it's just if you're like, I think if you're interested in these stories, right? Like I'm also a huge retelling person, love Robin McKinley. Then like when you put your hands on it, as soon as you're like starting to tell it yourself, it kind of it reflects a lot of your values and experiences and stuff like
Yeah.
that. This one started though, again, this is why it's not Arthurian. It didn't start with my love of King Arthur. It started with my love of Lady Knights, right? So
Ah.
that's several generations descended from what that has kind of left, the residue that Arthurian mythologies and knighthood and the romance of the chivalric age and all that has left was kind of that wave. And I would say the late 80s to 2000s of like Lady Knight YA publishing.
Mm.
I would Tamora Pierce is obviously kind of the big one in the Alana stories, but also Robin McKinley, Blue Sword, Hero of the
Blue Sword.
Crown, very formative to me.
So good.
Very formative. Sabriel had a sword. There was these books called Crown Duel that I really loved. Um, and it was an affection that I thought maybe was more universal than it
I
is.
just assumed everyone was as well,
I
right?
did. I assumed this was a generational experience we had all gone through together. I thought we all
Meanwhile,
felt
other
this
girls your
way.
age are reading like
Yeah,
Flowers in the Attic.
I know. I was right. I was like, I thought every single person has read Alana, first of all. And then the deep cuts, maybe not so much. But like, yeah, I thought we had this shared experience that maybe was a little more specific to me. And I think it did some things for like my particular fantasy addled kind of brain, but also it was doing something gender wise that like 90s girl power feminism was not giving me everything I wanted. Right? Like, and it was a version where it was like, you can be a Barbie astronaut or like a Barbie businesswoman or something. You can
But
be
you
a
still had to be
CEO.
Barbie.
And it was like, I don't want to be a Barbie and I don't want to be a CEO. I want to be the
Want to be Madonna.
hero. Right? Yeah. And so like if you are kind of steeped in this fantasy and fairy tale and folklore stuff, like the hero is the one with the armor and the sword.
Mm.
Like I can spot him. And so seeing that subverted, like that figure was always someone I had like this crush slash love for, and so I kind of always feel like at some point I was just going to do a lady night. That was inevitable. Um, and then once you start like as an adult kind of revisiting the concept of knighthood itself, like what is so appealing about this? When was this idea of this heroic lone figure kind of cemented in Western culture? Why do we love knights so much? What does it mean to love that? What were they really historically? Like that all complicates it like
Knights
a
weren't
huge
actually
amount.
great.
No, oh no, it's terrible.
Like
They're
landowner.
yeah, they're private security. They're absolutely cops. I'm afraid to say they're cops at best, and that's if there's not a war on, right? Then they're just an arm of the empire. Like it's very bleak. Um,
Mm.
And the idea that like a woman could just like pick up the sword and like be occupy knighthood is just like clearly not a true thing, right? Like the famous one is Joan of Arc, and like they did burn Joan, right? That's very much a thing they did.
And we
Um,
still don't really know anything about her, even though
and
there's
we
a
still
million
don't
books
really
about
know.
her.
And like her, is that the right pronoun? Like one of the things
Yeah,
I've read a lot about Joan in the process of
right.
this.
Could have been a dude.
And one of the fascinating things about her entire case is that what they actually burn her for was
Mm.
not like the heresy and seeing the hearing voices and the speaking to God and the rebellion stuff and the leading army stuff. It was that in the end, she would not refuse, she wouldn't wear women's clothes.
Yeah.
She said she
Yeah.
would, and then it came to it, and they come to get her men's clothing, and she cannot give them up, which speaks to me to a much more complicated gender expression than just like she was a knight and a girl. Like, was she though? So
She was
anyway,
probably beautiful.
she was, I don't know. I'm just saying. Um, anyway,
Yeah.
so obviously you have this sort of like a childhood nostalgic feeling towards knighthood and lady knights in particular, and then kind of encountering maybe a more complicated understanding of like what that means. And so then this book was just like having my cake and eating it too. I wanted to have the hero and I wanted to deconstruct the hero in the same thing,
You had fun
which
writing this one.
is a mess, is a mess. So I was like, this is why I feel like I'm stuck in an endless loop with this book.
Oh my gosh, but it's so good. I have described this book to many a person over the past several weeks of just like, it feels like I'm reading an ancient text. Like, I feel like I am reading an ancient text right now. It feels so real to me. So, I wanted to talk about your writing and writing style, and specifically, was there a specific tone you were trying to set for the readers with this book, especially with the time loop aspect?
Oh my God.
Mm.
Yeah, the time like never doing that again. By the way, if anyone who's listening is a writer, which I know has got to be some of you, anybody who's in a book club, I suspect,
Yeah.
um, it's not too late. You don't have to write a time travel novel. You can free yourself. You don't
Too
have to
much to
do
keep
this.
track of. No,
Free
thank you.
Oh,
yourself.
I love reading them, but I would not want to
just
write
so
one.
many charts. I just had a lot of charts. I never want to make a chart again. But tonally, I think I spent a little bit of while like wrestling with this one in kind of the early days of drafting where I would try something and be like, that's not it, and kind of go back to the beginning. And a couple of things became clear to me. One was that I am not Nicola Griffith. Have you guys read her? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She's one of the greatest writers that there is, and the depth of research that she has brought to her medieval world is incredible. And
Mhm.
her tone throughout those books is just like,
Spot on.
yeah, and it's noble and archaic feeling, but very human and very grounded in the natural world. But I think it has this like a sobriety to it. It's very sober and very serious, and it makes you feel like you're reading about medieval kings, and that's amazing. And I can't pull that off, is what I've quickly found is that I am going to make jokes or
I was
like
like,
little
you're funny
things to
though.
myself.
You're
Be
so
funny.
funny.
And so like immediately I was like, well, I'm not Nicola Griffith, so I have to give that up. And I have to have it broken up. So like almost the excerpts in it that are supposed to be that kind of faux medieval tone, that's like in my mind, I was like, all right, so this is an actual medieval because that's a totally different thing. This is like Sir Walter Scott doing medieval, right? Which is like selling an image of this romantic era to a Victorian audience, you know?
Mm.
So like
Mm.
Mhm.
an imitative, consciously arch building these heroic figures. And then I was like, it's okay to have the other sections be much more human and grounded and kind of funny and kind of sexy because it's like the opposite of that. Like if you have this falsely constructed world, you get to be as earthy and emotional as you want in the other
Yeah.
ones.
Well, and I feel like some of that is set up by your choice to write so much of this in a first person narrative because it feels so personal. Like Kai and I were talking about one of the things that we loved was just how you feel like you become the character, like you're in their head because they're talking, you're like in their thoughts because when they say you and I, it's this very intimate way of writing. So and it's unusual. So tell
Yeah,
me
and that
about
was
that
kind of the
choice.
key. That was kind of the thing that I figured out was like I was trying to write it in third person and it was sort of working, but like I think because I was taking all these like big-ish swings structurally and like trying to do these big ideas, and the scale of like 1,000 years was insane. I don't know what I was doing. I was like the like through line that you were going to follow both as a writer and a reader, hopefully, is like this emotional connection between the two people. And so
Mm.
like finding a way for them to be talking to each other, even though they spend large parts of it either apart or wildly misunderstanding each other. Like if they can be addressing each other, then this is like the hand that you were holding through this like
Yeah.
all these loops.
Yeah, why did you feel like it was important to hear both Una and Owen's perspectives?
Yeah. I think I was always intending to do that, but part of the reason would be that like I knew from the beginning that this was supposed to be turning this kind of cardboard figure, this mythological figure, into a real person, and that you would first meet her critically through someone else's eyes. Like that's the only way heroism can be preserved because it's ultimately kind of false. So I learned this trick explicitly from Robin McKinley. You will know what I'm talking about,
Yes.
Lee Ellen. Where like in The Blue Sword in particular, and also in Here in the Crown, she does this weird POV thing that is like I think illegal now, where all of a sudden you're no longer in close third, and it's like you're watching her from a servant who's watching her go by,
Like
or
far
a
away.
mem yeah, you suddenly move back and they
Mhm.
see her as like a legend coming
Yeah.
emerging. And I think that trick is critical because if you're too close, then that's a person just like you. And they can't
Right.
be that legend. No one is that.
Yeah.
So like seeing her through Owen's eyes as a book first, and then seeing her as a real person even from Owen's eyes, and then the
Mhm.
next step had to be like internal to her for her to like complete this arc that I wanted of becoming real.
And then yet even that perspective changes though, because you've got Owen. I mean, you write it, you've got this first person narrative, but then interspersed throughout, you've got Owen's writings. But even his writings change, right? Because in the beginning, it has this very like you can tell he's like writing for the queen, right? He's not writing really
Mhm.
for him at this point, and
Mhm.
he's really not telling her story. He's like glorifying everything, and the words are
Mhm.
big and fluffy, and it's like
Mhm.
doth
Mhm.
saith, and it's not really even the truth, right? But then it that changes. So I thought that was really powerful and very well done. But tell me about that decision to add this like story within a story, because that also had to be hard. And
Yeah,
then
I don't
just
know.
changing kind of the structure of that as you went. And how did you do
I
that? Like, did you write that story first? Did you like which
No,
story
it's all
first? Did you
written
go to
in
the end?
order. Like I
Are
didn't
you
write any
linear?
pieces out of order. It went from beginning to end because I don't understand how to write it out of order. I think it's cool. I know people do it, but I don't understand how you could write that without knowing what comes first. I They just keep letting me get away with it. Like my first book was kind of a book within a
I
book.
love these people that just let you write. Thank you. Bless.
Oh, I know. I know. And it had footnotes. And like once you started with book within a book that has footnotes, you're like, I don't think there's any laws. So like I can just keep doing this thing. And I think I would love to one day have a new theme, but so far it's always kind of stories about stories. And so it is a trick that works very well if you're talking about like the ways that we consume and process and deploy stories to
Mhm.
have the story within the story. Like, so I found it very like kind of the easiest way to communicate, like particularly since I wasn't referencing Arthurian stuff. I think in the very earliest version of this book, there wasn't that because I was referencing things that you guys already know. Like I don't have to explain the pulling of the sword out of the stone. Like everybody knows that, that's good. But when you don't know, when you're inventing a new mythology, I was like, all right, we need like a baseline shared understanding of what this is.
Mm-hmm. But do you? I mean, it's. I mean, I also
Right.
kind of
I don't
love that. Like,
know.
maybe that's just me as a reader. I am more of an emotional reader, so like,
Yeah.
I read your stories and I'm like in love with the story. So I don't really care if like the
Thank
how
you.
the
You're my
time
ideal
travel all
reader.
works. I don't really like. I don't know how it works. It just does. It just worked. But I
It
know there's people
worked.
that are like, have the plots and the charts and the.
Yeah.
It worked so well. I don't know about the other readers in the chat right now, but emotional roller coaster for me. I'm also such a character-driven reader.
Mm.
I love good characters. I love when you love who you're reading about, and through your writing process, it's amazing. But can I talk about how Owen is like he is the ideal man. Like he
Cinnamon
I
roll.
agree. People
he's
are not necessarily universally loving him, and I am just like, no, I'm afraid
if
on this one, for once my insecurities do not win. I actually love him. I know him personally.
if there are any Owen haters in the chat, time to jump out
Y'all need to
because
walk out now.
we I'm
Mute the
about to
chat for a little bit because we're gonna have a little
let
fan
me
fest.
tell you, talk about a man written by a woman, which we know.
The
My
best kind of
favorite,
man.
my best kind of man. My favorite thing about him, and I want to know if you did this intentionally or not, was he has the art of noticing
Mm.
Una,
Mm.
noticing the history, noticing the other players involved, and also noticing himself throughout each aspect of the story and making very conscious decisions along the way, which hot, but was that
See,
intentional?
I am on the record early on, like years ago. Somebody was like, I don't understand how anybody could ever think Benedict Cumberbatch is hot. And this was the height of the
Oh,
Sherlock series. And I was like, look,
I
I understand you. If he was just a guy, I understand you. It's actually the role of Sherlock that is hot. It's the myth of a man who pays attention. And
mm.
I
Yeah,
believe in that.
But also Benedict Cumberbatch is kind of hot.
I mean, it's fine. It's the voice. It's 90% voice,
that's
whatever.
Smaug, you know?
I don't have to justify this any longer. That argument has been won. But um no, it's funny that you would pick up on that. I can't tell you who I was talking to because it would he would be too embarrassed. But I was talking to somebody who was like, how do you like he's going on a first date? And he was
Mm.
like, what is like attractive? And I was like, do you remember the beginning of Fleabag season 2 with the hot priest? You don't really notice him until he turns to her and says, so how have you been? Or like, what do you do? And it's because he is paying attention to her. And that is like the moment that the entire dynamic that you understand that he's going to be the lead is literally just attention.
Mm.
I was like,
Oh my God.
ask questions, pay attention to what she says. So I do believe that's critical to men, but also to like romance in general is curiosity and interest. And in Owen's case, obsession, but that's because it's fiction and I'm allowed to exaggerate.
Okay,
And we
well,
thank you for it.
while you guys are all hot and bothered about Owen, I am in love with Una.
Me too.
My original crush.
I have a total crush on Una. I think she is totally badass, and I I just love how you wrote her. She did like give me Joan of Arc vibes, but also, Bran of Tarth.
Brienne of
So like
Tarth.
I'm sure you've heard that. Did you like were you modeling her after a particular person in your head? Did she just come out of nowhere? Was she sort of like this, culmination of all the like what you wanted to be as a girl? Because I feel like she's everything I wanted to be when I was a little girl.
I don't know. It's both. It's kind of that interesting thing, which I think is kind of fundamental to like perhaps a queer lens of things, is that it's what you wanted to be, but also what I was in love with, right? Like there's kind of a both things are happening at once. I couldn't divide them if I tried, right? But
Yeah.
the other thing that she is fairly consciously is a lot of the things that I think are just fundamentally attractive regardless of gender, but which are always kind of assigned to the male love interests.
Mm.
Like this,
Yeah.
like
Like
frankly,
the scar.
a scar,
I think
a
the scar's
tragic
great.
backstory, like the potential for violence or the like I'm dangerous thing. I love
Yeah.
that. I think that's hot. But
Mm.
it's always by default assigned to men in ways that I think, taken as a whole, like I'm not trying to cancel anybody for liking a good power dynamic, but I think as a whole, we need a little bit more elbow room in
Yeah.
that in hetero gender dynamics.
Yeah.
And so it was very fun to give her this like to let her be the stern one, to let her be like the dark, troubled one with the scar. I was like, those are just things that I'm into, and they're not copyrighted by any particular gender.
But she didn't seem over the top or like tropey. Like
Yeah.
I never
Well,
felt like
also a lot of those men, I'm like, all
caricature of
right,
herself.
settle
Like she was
down.
authentically her.
Yeah.
She felt like real.
Mm.
Yeah, I was like, there were several points where I was like, "Am I reading about myself? Like, what? Like, this is what it is to be a woman, like, you know." And I so appreciated the fluidity of both of their characters,
Yeah.
throughout the story. Even at one point in the book, when they're, on their 9 years of running, basically, you're like, there are times where they are both men, they are both women, they are neither, they are all of the above, and it works so well because of the rawness and realness that you put into each of their characters and allowing us as readers to understand them. Chef's
Well,
kiss.
yeah. And I think once again, if you kind of take seriously the idea of Lady Knight, that is a gender traitor. There's no moment in actual history where that's ever been like everybody was like, "Wow, you're so cool and strong. We love you. You're like Xena." Like that doesn't actually happen even today, really. There's not like a category that where that is allowed. And so if you were committing kind of gender treachery, I wanted to pair her with someone else who maybe understood the other side of that.
Mm.
And to kind of take seriously how outside of normalcy. Even if you find an exalted position, it is in one that is exterior to like the normal workings of society. You're not invited in.
The other thing, though, that I felt like was while it was a look at identity, it was also kind of a look at false identity because a
Mhm.
lot of it is this sort of self-assignment. Owen is like, I am a coward, but I think he's like the bravest person I've ever met. Like he literally time travels for someone he loves and like goes into these crazy situations and defends her honor, and
Well, it's what he
that's pretty
believes about
brave.
himself, but also something that he's been told because he doesn't like
Right.
look the way that a man is supposed to look or act the way that a man is supposed to act. That he is like has this. We all have this received knowledge about our identities too, and that
But
was
it
one of
can be
them.
BS. Like we can
It
believe the
is. Oh, it's
BS.
mostly
Yeah.
BS. Yeah. But I also think that's fun to play with when you have done something like have 1,000 years to play with of like there's no world in which gender or race actually have ever been consistent for that long time, like what those roles are, who is allowed to do what, how power looks, how masculinity is performed, how femininity is performed. These things are not static categories. And so it was very fun to take like a World War One-ish era idea of masculinity and send him back and be like, oh my God.
So good.
We also have to talk about Vivian slash Yvain.
Yeah.
One, they are one and the same. Wow, how exciting. Two,
Mind blowing.
mind blowing. She is unfortunately such a realistic villain and falls so heavily into the category of villains are made and not born.
Hmm.
And I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think, like, reaching perfection and power, why it was so important to her, and was that her goal?
Yeah, I think the weirdest reaction I've ever gotten to this book was I think it's happened now twice. So I'm like, all right, it's a pattern. Is people being like some version of, I think this is so cool, but it's weird, or I thought it was strange that there's no villain in the book. And I was like, huh.
Did they read the whole book?
She has like 4 monologues. I don't know how you missed her.
And she's like,
Yeah, she's literally
Literally
like
in the corner.
cackling. Like that's usually
I'm
quite
not
good.
subtle. But yeah, but I think the reason is that confusion of like that victim and villain can be the same category, or that like
Yeah.
in
Can the
fact
victim be
bad
the
things
villain?
can happen to
Mhm.
you and you can say true things about the world and still be doing unimaginable evil. Um,
Or are
I
they
would
just so like caught up that like the villain has to be a dude? Like
no, I think it was just yeah, a little
that's
bit. I
really
think it was
unusual to
that
me.
thing of like but she was right. It is really hard for women to be a queen. It's like, so that is white
So that
feminism.
makes it
That is
okay.
turfdom. That is how
Ah.
you justify almost any act of evil because it's actually so hard for you. Um,
Mhm.
I really enjoyed writing her as a villain. Obviously, she gets great monologues. It was fun to have a villain who, the puppet master thing was very, very fun.
Yeah.
But also to think as sympathetically as I can about people who seek kind of limitless power. People for whom like there is no such thing as enough. Like how do you get that way? And I think it is fear-based. fundamentally. Um, and I don't think it necessarily has a specific gender. Like I think that clearly we're in a moment where it's very, very easy to look at the people in power who are doing the most harm and identify a long list of white women who are participating happily in that and who are gaining power, measurable power, safety, and wealth from that.
Mm.
And it's a kind of uh villains are made and not born, but they also choose. And like that
Yeah.
choosing and that agency of what you do with the world and the harm that is done to you and the fear that you live with is like kind of fundamental.
Yeah. So this book could easily be super heavy and super negative because you are looking at all of these very big concepts and themes. And yet in the middle, you have this like absolutely beautiful love story that made Kai cry.
Many times.
Lots of
I,
bawling.
I, I genuinely, there was one point, I think I texted Leellen and several other staff members who have also read it. I was like, why can't I stop? Like, it started
Yesterday,
at
I'm
chapter
talking to her at a
9.
coffee shop and she starts literally crying. She's
I
like, "Are
start
you ready for
tearing up
12
again.
steps?" And I was like, "What is happening now?"
Oh, beautiful. And it's like, it's not just one thing, it's all the things.
So tell us about that because it is really unusual to write a novel that has so much, heaviness of war and oppression, but then this gentle spirit of timeless romance that can
Yeah,
overcome.
I think, however, there's no uncheesy way to say this, but it is actually just what I believe, right? At this point, like, we
Aww.
are living through the like violent death throes of an empire. I'm familiar with Owen's situation, right? And I do think the only reason we either fight or survive or submit or whatever we choose to do is like for each other. And like those, if this is about like a villain who is sort of coldly manipulating the narrative of everything for power, then the sort of the opposite to that, the only way to wrest that power away is the sort of small scale, human scale connections, which I think are romantic, are family, are friends, are, just like love between
Love.
people. And that's one reason, weirdly, I felt very from the beginning, I was like, this is going to be like my most explicit book. I think this is about like that. I think sex and the body and gender and love are like actually oppositional to the project of like fascist categorization of people and separation and loneliness and isolation and making us into cardboard versions of ourselves. Like I think this is like central to something that I'm trying to do here. Also, and this is critical, I got into historical romances in the last like since the
Oh, did
pandemic.
you?
Oh, I
Oh,
read
wow.
like
Like
four a
Bodice
week.
Ripper or like,
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Actually, let me show you my shelf so that you know that I'm serious. This is my bodice ripper
Oh, I
shelf.
am obsessed.
Yeah.
let's normalize romantic books as being okay.
They're great. They're great, and I didn't know they were great. So I've gotten in very deep. Those are just like my special favorite ones that I have to own in
Naked Kyle,
print.
I
Like
so
I
have you right
read
now.
so many. I specifically like them from the late 90s to the early 2000s, like a very problematic era in the genre space. And I love them. And some of them have so much to say about
Yeah.
sex and pleasure and indulgence and connection and love. Like it turns out the politics, I think, of love are like very tied to every other kind of political project that we're talking about.
Mhm.
And I think they're great. So I learned a lot from those writers.
And you're like, I'm putting that in this
It was
novel.
like, that's for me now. I own that and I can do it with my fantasy novels.
Was that kind of freeing to make that decision? Because you haven't had that really in your
Yeah,
past.
I feel like I've been creeping up to it. There's been a little bit more romance maybe per book. And it turns out many of those books, like we're talking about Robin McKinley, many of the
Right.
formative books that I loved did have at their heart like a very important romance.
Hmm.
And I just think as I'm reading more of this and as sort of censorship is on a wild rise and kind of a puritanical politics surrounding the ways that we talk about books and the ways we talk about romance writing, erotica, pornography, all of these things. I was just like, as a political project, they're dividing this world into the freaks and the
Mm.
normal people. And it's very important to stand on the side of the freaks, where however you can get there. So I was like pretty determined for this book to be explicit. It was.
So, so good. And again, we thank you for it. And, I always like to say the weirder the better, just we are the happier lot,
A
genuinely.
lot of
I
fun.
I will say that my my child's kindergarten teacher texted me that she was reading my book, and I was like, "Whoop!"
Maybe skip that chapter.
I was like, "Just so you know, there's,
I'm a
like,
very creative person.
and she writes back, "Oh, do you think elementary school teachers don't read this stuff? Like, please." And I was like, "Okay, my bad, my bad."
No, I was about to say, was so surprised. I had a 24-year-old straight white male guy friend who, when I was reading this book, was like, I love that. I love that. I was like,
Welcome to
yes,
the
Yeah.
you
team.
do.
It's
Thank
important.
you. Like, you are amazing. And yes, it really is. It's just such a book for everyone. Like, there's
Mhm.
not a person that I would not recommend this to, other than, like, a 16-year-old who's, it's
My
like,
mother-in-law
because of the
too.
sexual content,
Our
it's like,
mom.
but anyone who I know will love it. It is just such an auto recommendation.
Yeah.
Another thing that just stood out to me so much about it was it's a heroic story, and you deconstruct heroism in it. I
Mm.
mean, it is so well done. Una is put in the position of being the hero so many times that she really struggles when she doesn't have to be. Like, when they finally, kind of get out of the loop for a bit, they're in that like 9 year, like, on the run, and she doesn't have to be the hero. It's still her first instinct to be the hero in many situations, and she's consciously having to make choices to not be. It feels so against her nature. And there's a quote from your book that I'm going to read to you.
Aw,
It's
so
okay. I
fresh.
won't remember writing it.
Is that always
Every
so
time I
awkward?
see a
You're like,
quote,
where did
I'm
I
like,
write?
wow, who wrote that?
It says, for sometimes when we could not run any longer, when all of our choices had been whittled down to one,
Mm.
love made heroes of us. And so I wanted to ask you, like, how did you navigate the inner conflict of what it is to be a hero alongside the narrative of just being told what you're supposed to be? And
Mm.
also, what does a hero look like to you?
Yeah, I think this was the thing that I realized only in drafting actually was that like I was very like, oh, heroism and the myth of knighthood is deployed by states for the purposes of nationalism and empire building and all these terrible things. And then as you're writing it, you're kind of remembering why you love Lady Knights and like what the concept of a hero actually is. And so it's this that I realized that I needed her not to stop being a hero, but to redefine what that is and who you're being it for. Like to a state, a martyr is a very useful figure for inspiring nationalism and stuff like that. But what does it mean when you like to protect your people and your
Mm-hmm.
place and your family? That's like
Mm.
essential to like being in community with each other, being family, being in love. And I think that I was like an important switch for me to make of like, no, I'm not trying to take her sword away. I'm
Mm.
trying to like make it not be in service to
Yeah.
someone else, right?
Right.
Um,
And that is true heroism,
Mm.
and
is,
and I think we have a funny relationship a little bit with violence, where like whether it's who's allowed to be violent, when it's justified, when it's heroic and amazing, and we all love it, and when we condemn it, hmm. Uh,
mm-hmm.
and I think particularly when we're talking about resistance, we get very
Right. The words we use
tangled.
matter for those
We
things,
get
right? What's the difference between a protest and a riot? Who was there?
who gets to be a rebel and who's an insurgent, who
Yeah.
is a terrorist and who is a freedom fighter. Like these kinds of things, we get
Yeah.
very tangled around violence. We don't have a consistent understanding of it at all. And so it became kind of important to me to make sure that I wasn't saying, in order to be good, in order to be perhaps even a good woman, she has to put down the sword and she has to never be violent again. That's not what I mean, actually.
Hmm. Well, okay, so let's break this down a little bit more because I part of the power of this book is just the concept of story and who gets to tell the story. And that narrative is what we're living through right now as we try to rewrite history or frame history a certain way. And I know you have a past as a teacher and you write these lovely historical based novels. So let's chunk into that a bit. How like what did you
Yeah.
want your readers to be thinking as they're reading this?
Well, I will freely say that I was hoping this would not come out in a moment where they're literally like pulling museum plaques off the walls, right? And
Mm.
like banning books and changing national park signs and trying
All
to
that's happening right
rewrite.
now.
It's all happening and like rewriting curriculum.
Yeah.
And it's not coincidental though. Like I wish it wasn't happening, but also it is inherently tied to the project of fascism is this control of historical narrative is like a very necessary project. I think we tend to think of it as like another symptom of this craziness is that they want to like change what it says in the Smithsonian. And it's like that's not a symptom, that's actually critical because
Mm.
there's no true story of our country, of our past that justifies what is happening now.
Mm.
If you like actually teach history, there's no way you can get to um, concentration camps are justified, frankly. You have to lie. You have to like invent a past to justify your current atrocities. And I think that is what we're in the midst of doing. And
Creating
I
a
think,
narrative to fit where you want to
yeah,
go instead of
exactly.
actually looking.
You want to exercise power in these ways that are fundamentally insupportable. It's never justified to do these things, to have to round up dissidents, to over police people, to kill people in the streets now, as we're seeing. And so, like, given that, you have to have some sort of story about how America has not been a nation of immigrants. We have some sort of idea of a homeland. We have some sort of purity that we are defending. We have something like traditional gender dynamics, which have only ever been true for a limited number of people in certain classes and times. Um, that we have this greatness that we are going, all we have to do is restore it and we will have it back.
Mm.
And I think that lie takes a lot of work to maintain because it's obviously not true. And the counter to that lie I is one wishes still preserved in things like, libraries, museums,
Mm.
classrooms, things like that. But where it can't be, which is often the case in authoritarian regimes, it kind of has to rest with us and like our own memories and our stories that we are telling to each other. That was one
And to
reason,
our
like it was
children.
to our children. To
Yeah.
like we actually do remember the past as they were trying to rewrite it. Like we have our own generational, small scale and local memories of things.
Mm.
And that was one reason at the very end of this book, it was important to me to have like that it is there are still actually stories told about her, but they're like these diffuse folkloric ones that are sort of from the ground up rather than from the top down. And I
Yeah.
think that is how we can counter this is in some ways like if the narrative is we're overrun with dangerous criminals,
Mm.
to counter this with like I don't think so. Those are all the kids in my kid's classroom and they all play soccer together on Saturday. So I
Yeah.
don't think that that's right. Like,
Yeah,
like
organically
that's genuinely
creating.
untrue in the world. And so to tell the actual stories of what is true, I think matters a lot.
And fantasy is a great way to get this story told, really. I think it's a creative medium to have more people think a little differently.
Maybe. I don't know. I never want to get too excited about like, and I'm gonna like change somebody's mind. Mostly not, but
Maybe
I'm
even
gonna get
open a
this
mind
out
though.
of
Maybe
my
to change a mind, but even just like plant the seed.
Open and also reinforce the minds that are
yeah.
already there and
Because it
reminding that you're not isolated and alone in those thoughts, in those hopes. And that's why I love this book so much. It's so hopeful at
Yeah.
the end. It's so hopeful, even throughout, even in the hard times, you put the humor and you put the realness to create that hope, to reinforce what we know and the stories that we tell. Especially, I love how you mentioned like at the end that you did intentionally put those little bits. I loved the gaps where Owen, he goes, instead of asking questions about Una, I went and I was like, there is a safe place. There is an idea of, this land outside of Dominion. And having that hope is so important. And it's through word of mouth, it's through the human connection
Mhm.
and the storytelling. And yes, thank you.
Thank you.
What was my next thing?
I know, like where are we at, Kai?
So good. In
Free.
this, yes, grief. Just good grief.
Mm.
To switch
You
from hope,
know,
let's
the
go back to grief
world,
for a moment.
hope, grief, hand in hand. There, there are several moments of genuine grief and loss in this book. And again, I cried for the beautiful things. I also cried for the hard things. This is a crying book, everybody. And I'm not a crier. I just want to say that
Not.
there are like this is probably a third or fourth book ever that has made me
Oh,
cry.
that's wild. I cry all the time. I cry at bad books. Like I am easy.
That's me. I cry. Everything makes me cry.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I would love to hear specifically about Una and Evain's roles and turmoil in motherhood that you incorporated
Mm.
into this. Both bringing in to a space, knowing the risk, Una and Owen deciding to have children, knowing that it probably would not work out for them. But then also, you know, spoiler alert, again, book club, Yvain
Y'all read it.
turns out you read it. Yvain is Una's mother and makes the conscious decision to sacrifice her. And it's just, yeah, why was that important to include that motherhood aspect on
Mhm.
multiple levels?
Yeah, I will say the very first event that I did where I talked about this book, which is always like a weird thing where like I don't have like smooth answers for anything. I feel like my third or fourth question from the audience was just, do you have a complicated relationship with your mother?
With your mom.
I was like, next question. Like, obviously, I don't know. Sure. Who doesn't?
But everyone,
Um,
I mean, come on.
come on.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, this is one of those things that like I think a lot of the time you're like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm in there for these reasons. And then you go back and read what you wrote, and you're like, oh, I was actually getting some other stuff out there. And that, like, your own kind of psychology, your own interest, your own fears
Mm.
sneak up on you in some ways. And I will say it is not mostly about like my relationship with my mom, but my relationship to motherhood and to having children and the fears that come along with it are not all what could happen to my children out in the world, although that's the majority of it. There's also to me this fear of like, you have so much power when
Mm.
they're young. You are so, there's no other relationship to me than parenthood to child that feels so unbalanced. You have all this responsibility and just the terror almost of misusing that.
Mm.
Um, or the thing that I think we see pretty commonly of like exercising your own fears and desires and hopes, putting them onto your children and making them live those for you. Uh, yeah, those are things that I fear and that I think about a lot and that I think I didn't understand until I had kids myself. And this is not like, oh no, when you can't know until you have kids, but like they are so immediately individuals and people so completely and so entirely in ways that I think are almost terrifying to have that large of a role in somebody else's personhood is kind of like related to the bigger themes that I was doing here about like power and identity and how we define ourselves. And it became kind of one of these themes that like snuck up on me.
Mm.
Did it feel therapeutic to kind of write some of it out?
A little
Like,
bit,
because
yeah.
I feel like it's something that everyone ponders on. And so to have an outlet like this,
I would say the only scene that I wrote and was like I undid it and then I redid it was like the leaving the kids, the like part
uh,
where I was like, I don't think I can do that. I didn't like writing that. Like that felt bad. I didn't want to do that. But then it is sort of one of those things of like, I think that's like a version of my greatest fear, right? Like failing
Mm.
in that
Yeah.
way. Um, or having to leave them and they need you. That is just like such a like physically terrible feeling that it was like, well, I don't want to pull back from that though. Like that is the risk you agree to as soon as you have a child. And that is the thing you are hoping against. And so like if this is about like how you decide to love despite like this very uncertain and dangerous and cruel world, like then that is the risk and it needs to be like out there on the page. But I did hate it. I didn't like it.
At the end of the day, though, you gave us a happy ending.
Yeah, they were always, I was like, they're gonna come back. It's fine. I can't, I would never not give you a happy
I
ending. I
was
just
gonna,
don't
was
think
there ever
that's who
a
I
point where
am.
you were like, it's just in real life, this wasn't work out, or were you just like, nope,
Oh,
always gonna
no,
be?
it was
We're
always gonna,
thankful you gave us a happy ending.
well, I just couldn't write those heavy things without that, like, maybe a security blanket, whatever you want to call it. I actually read this interview with A.S. Byatt, who passed away. And so, like, people were passing around
Yeah.
some old interviews. And I did not know, this is gonna make me cry. I didn't know that she had lost her child when her son was 10. And it was her only child. And
Mhm.
she just had delayed being a writer in order to have this good job to pay for his nice
Okay.
education or whatever. And she kept that good job until the day he would have graduated. And then she quit and she became a writer.
Wow.
Um, and she has this quote about how she used to, when she was younger, sort of look down on a happy ending.
Mm.
And then she realized after she lost him, why not have a happy ending, as one has the pleasure of rhyme, as one has the pleasure of color. And I think of it as like this thing that we can do, almost like what fiction is for to me,
Right.
is like, yes, I know in the real world, whatever, in reality, in history, these things more often the grief wins or something. But why am I making art if not to have the pleasure of rhyme, right?
Right. And that's the beauty of it. And that's
Yeah.
the power of you reading those bodice rippers.
I'm telling you, it's connected. I believe this fundamentally.
We all just really want them to get together in the end and live happily ever after.
Yes,
We
yes.
learned a lot. We had very
And
deep
they can
themes,
go
but
through it first. I
happy
really
ending.
want them put through the ringer
Yeah.
first. And that I can only, I think, really endure that and engage with these really heavy things with
Yeah.
that like promise at the end.
That hope is what gets us through, though. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that is life. Life would really stink if we didn't have some sort of joy and
Uh-huh.
hope to cling to all the time, every day.
Exactly.
Yes. We've got a couple questions in the Q&A from some of our people coming in, so I wanted to ask a couple of those real quick. Amanda asked, you spoke about formative books you read during your childhood. Do you plan on writing any middle grade books yourself?
Oh, that's a crazy question. I'm writing one right now, actually.
A middle grade book?
Yeah, I'm trying. I don't know if it'll
Oh,
be anything. My
fun.
agent was like, it's literally the worst selling subgenre right now. And I was like, too bad, it's happening.
Oh my gosh. I love
I
that.
don't know if it'll be anything, but I'm having a really nice time because I kind of realize, like, I read a ton to my kids, and it's like it's very fun. It's been wonderful to kind of revisit all these books and find new ones. And then I had this realization of like, oh my God, there's only my time is running out of like time where I
Yeah.
could write for children and it would even slightly be towards them.
That's so cool.
So
Um,
cool.
Allison wants to know if you would be willing to share some of your favorites from that shelf behind you.
Oh, wait, the bodice rippers ones? Because
Yes,
there's
they're
Oh
other,
like,
yeah.
tell us a
I
couple of
do
your
have
favorites.
other
They want some titles.
Give us some
Okay,
titles.
all right. See, I like to
I
get
learned
very
about Chuck
specific
Benner from Alix
recommendations
Harrow.
because there's actually huge variation in these. Some of them you read and they're just like a rom-com, but in the Regency era, and you're like, this was nice. And some of them are like, there's kidnappings, there's war crimes, the intensity varies hugely. Um,
Pirates. There's got to be pirates, right?
oh, there's some pirates. There was definitely an era post Pirates of the
That's
Caribbean where
totally
there
what I
was a
remember. I
lot of
remember my grandmother always having those. And we go visit her on the Cape, and I'm like, what are you reading, Grandma?
The
What is this cover?
shirtless
Those covers back then,
scene.
like they don't really do those covers anymore, but those covers were like
I love those covers. I really
Marissa
strongly
Broadbent
love.
is making a comeback with those. She's got like alternate covers for some of her books that are all
Frankly, thank God. I don't need, I mean, I know it's not their fault, but romanticy, like we can do better than squirrely like script to communicate what
then
we're
a
doing
red
here.
rose on the cover.
Let's be serious. Let's
No
say
more
what is
roses.
it is.
Let's put a
Oh,
toned person on the front.
this is what I'm saying. This is
Oh,
what
Jackie
I'm
says
saying.
Fabio. Yes, Fabio and his
Yes,
buttercup rituals.
Fabio.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh, so funny.
Exactly. All right. So
This is
what are
what
some of my
give the people
favorites?
what they want.
I know. Okay, one of my recent favorites is, I think this was the first one. My Lord and Spy Master
Oh my
by
gosh,
Joanna
yes.
Bourne.
Nice.
These I think came out and were and like kind of weren't that beloved by the historical romance community because they're almost too much action. Like
Oh,
they're
not
actually
quite
spy
historically
novels.
accurate, maybe.
No, wildly, they're too historically accurate. It's like competing spies during the Napoleonic Wars between French and England. So they're like playing all these like there's codes and there's like traps and there's all this stuff. Like I think in that one she like is the best spy in France, obviously, is captured by the best spy in England. And then he finds out she's blind actually and has been pretending to have vision this whole time. And then she gets knocked in the head and she gets her vision back and she escapes him. And she's fallen in love with him. She feels kind of bad about it. But then she has her vision back. She meets him again later and doesn't recognize him because she'd never actually seen him before. And she
She's been
falls again
blind.
in love again a second time with the same man.
So
This is
good.
amazing.
It's so good. And I can't tell you, like, I'm making this sound ridiculous, but I am like all in. Like,
No,
I
this is what
cry at
life
the
is
end of these
about.
books.
I trust you. Kai and I are going to do this for book club next.
So fun. I had a great time with those.
Oh, I'll write it down. Okay.
Can you say the title one more time
My
for our
Lord and
friends?
Spy Master.
My Lord and Spy Master by Joanna Bourne. Those are fantastic. I'm also reading, and this is like such a deep cut that real people who are in historical romance will know how insane this is. This is a book you can't actually get because Judith Ivory, who wrote, I think, like 6 books, originally published 2 under a different name, and they're now so rare and out of print and valuable, they go for over $100 on eBay. Like they're so hard to find, and they were never made into ebooks. But I have gotten my hands on her like lost first 2 books, and they're
Yes.
phenomenal.
And what are they called?
The first one is called Bliss, obviously. The second one is called Dance, and
I love
they're
it.
so great.
That's amazing.
Oh my goodness. So good. I have a question from Jackie. She said one of her favorite books is Stardust. She noticed a lot of the names were same or similar to characters in that novel. Was that an
Okay,
inspiration
that's
at all?
because
Or
he was
where?
also stealing from Arthurian and very like that.
I
That's
mean, Owen
So,
Mallory's not
so
like
where did the names come from was the main question.
yeah,
It's just like
yeah.
any specific inspiration.
No, that's actually kind of bums me out. Just because I also loved Neil Gaiman. He was pretty formative in my teenage years, and it's been a real that one's been a blow to see kind of what kind of person he turned out to
Yeah.
be.
Mm.
And to know that like those are kind of another set of books that I won't be sharing with my kids, which is a bummer because I loved Stardust.
Loved it.
But he was just stealing from better writers the same way that I was, in that like it's a lot of references to British mythologies, not only Arthurian, but also like Edmund Spenser's Fairy Lord, like Una is in there. Owen Mallory is I was actually thinking of Owain, who was like a pretty semi-obscure in Arthurian mythology. The reason I picked him is because he pops up in a lot of the stories and a lot of the iterations, but he has a totally different role in all of them. And to the point of like, wait, what is this guy? Is he a king or is he like a bard or is he just a knight at the table? And then in one of the stories, his like lover rejects him and he goes to the woods and wanders it until he goes mad. And I was like, I think that's the energy that my Owen has. And then Mallory is Thomas Mallory, obviously.
Right. Right.
And Joe asked that,
Oh
or she
yeah.
says it sounds like you're a plotter, not a pantser. But which one are you, and how has your writing process been different for this novel versus previous
Mm,
ones?
yeah. I have anxiety, so I'm never going to be a pantser. I don't understand how that works. I have it
That's when the
all.
voices talk to you and you're like, she said that she wanted to go up that
Yeah.
stairwell.
I don't have that kind of faith in myself. I can't do that. I need to know exactly where I'm going, even if I'm like 90% wrong. Like I need this
Mm.
certainty. So I do a lot of, I write like not an outline, but it's almost like if the book were just a short story, like I tell it kind of like a story, there's little bits of dialogue. It has to kind of stand on its own as a story that'll usually be around 10,000 words or so. The one for this book was Six Deaths of the Saint.
Mm.
And then I use that to kind of break into chapters, and then from chapters down to scenes. And I have it pretty all laid out. It's like somewhere under 20,000 words or so, but it's like what I think the book is really going to be. And only then can I start to write. And then I get to like a third of the way through and I'm like, I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong. And I rewrite my outline. And then I get to two-thirds of the way through and I'm like, I was wrong again, I was wrong again. And I rewrite everything. Mostly because like the things that I'm most sure about are the beginning point and the end point. Those are like pretty clear. Because it's sort of like implied in that is sort of like the thesis of the thing that you were doing.
Hmm.
And so like as I am approaching the big climactic point in the middle and then the end scene, if it's not lining up to where that feels justified or like the thing that would have to happen, then I've done something wrong. Like I haven't made the payoff feel right. And so I have to go back and do that. I told this to Olivia Blake actually one time, and she was like, girl, why don't you change the ending instead of the first two-thirds of the book? And I was like, this explains to me why you can put out 2 books a year. I put out one book every 3 years. Like,
Okay, kind of along those lines, because I really like this question. Did you think about ahead of time, like the number of time loops that Owen and Una were going to go through? Like, did you stick to it? Did you change it?
yeah, I had that all planned out in the parts of the book, and that didn't change.
That's amazing.
Also, Alexa asked, do you ever leave any Easter eggs in your books or little things that only you or people close to you can find?
Oh, for sure. It's never like on like super planned, but there's always little things that is like, oh, if you know, my husband reads this book, he's gonna know what I'm referencing or where I got this. Or um in Starling House, there's a point where someone is trying to teach someone else how to like patch drywall and
Mm.
and telling them to feather it. And number one, my dad taught me to patch drywall and all sorts of, he does like a lot of remodeling construction, but also he taught me to drive a clutch. And he was the phrase he repeated until I lost my mind was, you have to feather it. And I was like, what does that mean? That's not a verb that makes sense in the context of this car. So I put that in there for him.
Love it.
So
That's a great
good.
Easter egg.
Oh
Thank
man,
you,
and
Dad.
Mandy shouted out the audiobook narrators. They
Yeah.
were so good. I loved the audiobook a lot. They did incredible.
I mean,
I'm
Maura
always
Quirk
curious.
is, she's amazing.
Yeah, how is that process for you? Do you have any say? I know it can vary author to author,
Yeah.
like how much of a say they have, like if they get, like a short list or whatever the case
Yeah.
is. What was
I
that
mean, one
like?
thing that has surprised me about audio, because I sort of know Natalie Nadas, who's an audiobook narrator, she's kind of local to me, is through talking with her, just how short the timelines are for production. And like I don't start talking to audio production until like the arcs are printed, we're within 6 months. And I that's so fast to like find people, cast them, and record. And so like she says she gets books that she has to say yes or no to within like 24 hours and start doing. And so like that schedule is crazy. I
How
don't
would
know
you
why it's like
like?
that.
I feel like I would want to read the book and be like,
Oh yeah,
yes, I
she
love this
mostly doesn't
character.
have time. She can sometimes, but she mostly doesn't have time.
Right.
Which is
Because
wild.
she can't just pick up an audiobook and listen to it at 2.2.
Exactly. It's not
Which
fair.
came
She's doing
first,
the
the
work
audiobook
for
or
all.
the narrator?
And so like I get asked, Tor's audio team is very nice to me, and usually they're like, so are there any particular things you really don't want or do want about your
Mm.
audiobook narrator? And if there's any names, they're very careful to never be like, we can get them for you, because the scheduling is very difficult. But if there's
Yeah.
anybody you had in mind, and so I had some things about like identity and gender and stuff like that I put in there. And then I was like, I know probably not. But if Moira Quirk is
Oh,
available,
that's awesome.
like, because she narrates a lot of my favorite books, but especially the Locked Tomb books.
Oh,
And I
that's
love what
awesome.
she does with all those voices. And I think she does good work with that kind of fantasy that's like,
Mhm,
should it be a British accent?
mhm.
Probably. It'd be weird if it was American. Like she hits this secondary world fantasy beat really, really well. And then I was way more picky and specific about, and I had like all these things about like
Mm.
um nationality and gender and ethnicity and like what different types of people could work for this because it's secondary world, but it is not going to be a white straight cis person. Like it just can't be. That doesn't make sense. And so they found a really phenomenal performer. I love Sid Segar a lot.
So fun. And so you
So
didn't know ahead of time, like that was one that they found for you.
I think they gave me a short list of three, and they were all really a good fit.
Right.
And I just thought that, like, I don't know, they will record like a little bit of that character speaking, that
Mm-hmm.
dialogue, and they all do the same one, and then like it's interesting how easy it can be to just be like, oh, that's what Owen sounds like. That seems right. So I had
I
more
love
say in
that
this one,
that
and
you
it was
have a
great.
part of the process though, because you
Yeah,
created this character. So I
I
feel like it
know.
is so important for the author to be involved in it versus when it's like, well, here's who we got. And
Yeah,
and then
and
the
it
author can be
varies.
disappointed because it can make or break the audio.
Yeah. And that's just like a privilege of kind of where I am in publishing. I don't
Yeah.
kid myself. Like they're very nice to me. But I think there's nothing contractually that says they
Mhm.
have to give you that say, right? Like
Yeah.
they're just being nice.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of audio experience, I'm a big music person, and like
Mm.
almost
I'm
immediately,
so glad you're
especially
here.
once I got to the end of the book, I couldn't leave without talking about this because
I'm
you can
so
ask Helen, I've
happy. I
talked
was
about
like,
it
wait, you haven't asked this
nonstop
question
for the
yet.
past week. Um, if you're not familiar with the song "In a Week" by Hosier featuring
Oh,
Karen
am I
Crawley,
familiar? Come on.
it's
Come on.
so Una and
It
Owen
is so
coded.
this book.
The way that I've been like texting it to everybody, just like, just listen, just listen. Like,
Yeah,
this is
that's
it.
on the playlist. That's
It,
absolutely was on the
that's
playlist.
what I was
So
gonna ask.
you're right.
Do you have a playlist for this book? What was your kind of internal playlist? Do you have some songs that you listened
She
to a
busts out
lot
her
while
phone.
writing this
Hold on, I
one?
gotta pull it up. I gotta look. Because I have
Why
new
would this be in
playlists
there?
now.
That's amazing.
But
Yeah,
the
it
way
is
that song has been
absolutely.
on repeat for me all week leading up to this, just like to feel it all again. Oh my
Oh yeah, I
gosh.
mean, this is again probably very obvious. I'm not like very original in my music taste, but Hades Town, Wait for Me.
Yes.
That's a
Oh,
big one for me.
perfect.
Favorite musical.
Oh,
Yeah.
So good.
What else do I have on there?
mm, that's so
Um, Empire Now by Hosier was actually probably the one I listened to the most.
That's a good one.
What have I done? Oh, well, apparently I can't find it. Shovels and Rope, have you ever listened to them? These are a little bit my yeah, wolf like me. I liked that one. Uh
hmm.
yeah.
So good.
Oh, O.C. Elliott. Have you ever listened to O.C. Elliott? He's pretty small, obscure. I weirdly just listened to him when I was like young at a formative time. He has a song Forest Floor that is like the most specific you could possibly get for me.
I am
I feel like that's
writing
gonna be
that
Kai's new favorite
down.
song. I feel
Yeah.
just the
Forest
title
floor.
alone, Kai's like Forest Floor. That is like
Yeah, no,
I'm
it's not
someone that like
subtle.
I want to be the moss, you know? I'm just
right.
one of those people.
Kai is the embodiment of like fairy lore.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Then you get it.
That's
Oh my
amazing.
Yeah, that
goodness.
one's probably the biggest one.
Okay, are we allowed to
Um,
ask you what's next? I mean,
yeah,
I always hate asking authors that because we're like here for this, and but I
no,
also know
no.
you already like are on to the next thing. So
Yeah, I'm definitely there's gonna be kind of a gap, but this year I have a short story collection coming out that I'm pretty excited about. And I got to write four new short stories for it.
that's fun because that's like how you started.
Yeah, yeah, and
That's
I've been kind of consistently like doing little ones in between books, and
yeah.
yeah, and now they'll all be most of them will be collected and then four new ones.
Are they
So.
thematic or does it have like follow an arch or they just all
No, they're not really interconnected. It's going to be called the Slantwise Histories. A lot of them are kind of different historical moments, so or like an alt history kind of a theme.
love it? I love short stories.
Yeah, me too. And it was like something I kind of sadly thought of like, oh, I kind of have to leave that behind because it's not like a particularly financially stable way to spend your time writing short stories. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh, I miss it. I'll only do occasionally. And then to have the excuse to kind of get back into it was really, really nice.
that's lovely. I love that.
Yes. And Are we waiting 3 years for your next novel?
Yeah, probably.
Yep. All
Honestly,
right.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Don't
I'll just
email my
reread.
editor.
I will reread this one over and over again.
But I'm like, I did the short stories and then I really am kind of committed to this, probably again, not financially a great choice, but I'm really committed to this middle grade project. I'm having a
That's so
really great time
nice.
with
I'm
it.
so excited for that. I mean, especially because
And
I feel like I love middle grade, I love YA, but I see so many authors leaving that space now for
I
adult, and I'm like,
know.
there's
And
gonna
they
be a big
have to.
hole.
Because they have to, because like the financial pressures
Money.
of that market is collapsing. I
It's
understand,
literally
but I
money.
kind of have the privilege of being like, actually,
I just want to do it for fun.
I can just do this because it's something that I really, really love. And I'm
Yeah.
in a moment of getting to read, like, we're reading all the Diana Wynne Jones books right now, and it's
Oh my
so
gosh.
satisfying.
Awesome.
And we
Oh,
did the whole series of
Hell's Moving
Unfortunate
Castle.
Events. Yeah,
Oh.
I'm just like having
There's
a great time.
there's a new special edition of Hell's Moving Castle that we just got at the bookshop that literally we cannot keep there, and it's so beautiful. And our director of operations was like reordering. I was like, please put an extra in the cart and save it for me. I need it.
Because it's never in stock.
It's never in
Yeah,
stock. I was like, I
we
work here
just
and it's never
got
in stock.
um first of all, the graphic novel version of Alana is out. And my
Oh,
7-year-old is obsessed. It's so good. It's a beautiful thing. And the graphic novel adaptation of A Wizard of Earthsea
Mm,
is out, and they are both gorgeous. Anyway, I love young fantasy fiction,
yes,
so I'm really excited to do that.
yes.
love. Well, Alex, thank you so much for chatting with us this evening. I know
This
we
was
went a
so
little
fun.
over
I
time,
feel
but it
like we
was
could have just
so
kept going.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh
Now
my
we're just talking about
gosh.
books, which is what we actually want to
Right.
do.
I know. I'm like, before you go, what are you reading?
Go.
Because we
Yeah,
are book
what's
nerds.
the
I
next
do kind of
bodice
want
ripper on the list?
to. I want to know what you're reading.
What is the next one I'm going to read? I think I have a new Loretta, or not new because she stopped writing, but Loretta Chase is what I'm into right
Oh,
now. Loretta Chase is very solid.
how fun. All right.
Love
All
that
right.
for you.
Yeah.
Well, if
Thank you.
you don't mind, we're gonna announce our next
Oh,
meeting and who we're chatting with
are
next,
we?
Llewellyn. I
Okay.
mean,
Can I
we
jump up and go
should.
grab it? Because it's staring. It happens to be staring at me right now.
Yes.
It's pretty.
Go get it. I will
Okay.
say I'm glad you have a copy. My copy is not here, and
I
I
mean, well,
regret.
granted, it's the arc, and the real one is even prettier. But
Oh my gosh.
okay, friends, next month, this month, we are reading someone that we love and adore, another author that we fangirl over, and we've read all of her books, and we got to hang out with her last time she came in the shop. So we are reading Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibanez.
Oh my
The link is
gosh.
below. We will chat in a month from now. Do you have a date?
Yes, the first Wednesday of March, which is March 4th, because these months repeat. So
Fantastic. Yay. So the copy in the store has like pretty purple
beautiful
and it's like
purple
shiny.
sprayed
But it's
edges,
still, I mean, hello. Hello.
shiny,
And it's great
That's a
because
really
it's
gorgeous.
great
like
cover. I
Italy
haven't read
and
that
like
one yet, but I've
history
really
and
wanted to.
magic. It's fantastic. So
It's good. Also a delightful, broody main male character.
Yeah.
Just good
I have
broodiness.
talked with her about historical romances. She's given me some good recs. So if you want to
yeah,
continue
she
this
she
line,
reads it
I just
too.
want you to know we're learning all our tricks
Let's
from the best to
normalize
ever do
historical
it.
romance. Well, I have a whole shelf over there, so
Oh yeah. I started reading those way too young for sure. But oh my gosh, thank you so much, Alex, for being with us. Thank you, everyone who jumped in tonight.
yeah, thanks for
24
coming,
hours
friends.
from now, everyone will get an email with a link to the recording of this and all the updates and where to buy books and all the things. And
Fantastic.
until next month, thank you for being a part of the guild. Alex, hopefully one day we can get you to Texas
I
and
know
do
we'd
this
love
in
to have you
person.
in
It'd
the
be so
shop.
fun. But until
Yeah,
then, thank
thank you
you
guys so
for
much. This
joining
was
us.
great.
This is so fun. All
Thanks for
right.
being here. That was the best.
Good
Have
night,
a great night,
everybody.
everybody.
Night.
Bye, friends.